We're back. Here we go. All right, Ignite students. So it's now time to talk about the who, the what, and the when of ancient Earth. So we've got eons, we've got eras, period, epic, and we're going to tack on ages in there. We're going to focus way out. We're going to look at the era, and we're going to look at the Pre-Cambrian Era. We're going to start way back. Precambrian era starts when Earth is formed, 4.56 billion years ago, and it lasts for 4 billion years. 88% of the entire history of Earth is Precambrian. It's before the Cambrian period began, right? So this is a big chunk, but it's a quiet chunk. Like there's just not there's a lot happening, but the distinctions are really small. Okay. You know what? So area, period, epic. You can see this is now, and then we're going back, Precambrian. 88% of the geologic time. Maybe this is a better one. So the Hayden, the Archean, and the Proterozoic eons, actually all of this is encompassed by one era right here. This block is the Precambrian, because the first thing that happens is in the Paleozoic era, you have the Cambrian period. So before this is Precambrian. This is 540 million years ago. And this goes all the way back to 4,540 million years ago. All of this chunk is what we're going to talk about today. That's a lot. Okay. There are very few fossils in the rocks from this time. There are very few rocks from this time around, untouched, unaltered, and in their normal state. The rocks that are around are metamorphosized, right? They're deformed, they're eroded, and they're hidden. They're covered under layers and layers of stuff. So where do we see these rocks that are under layers and layers of stuff? Grand Canyon. The bottom of the Grand Canyon. There are places where these rocks are exposed, where weathering has just taken off everything above it without being redeposited. Okay? But the law of superposition says these rocks are below sedimentary rocks that are younger than them. So where there are sedimentary rocks, these are on bottom. Where there's metamorphic rock, that means that all the sedimentaries, there is no sedimentary there. They might be near the top. We'll get to that in a second. So they're only exposed in places like the Grand Canyon. And let's look at this is very detailed, very nice chart. This is now, this is Precambrian and all the stuff we're talking about. Very cool things at the Grand Canyon where you could see this, and you could see layer by layer by layer, older and older and older and older. This geologic map is incredible. It's a lot to look at on a computer screen. All right. But they color code all of these things from when they are, what type of rock they are, where you would find them. And then there we go. Oh, how about just use keys? Arrow keys work. Yeah, they do. Map's slow to respond. But then they color code the map of the Grand Canyon, and you see what kinds of rocks are where. That's nice. Okay. Shields. The only other place you're going to see rock from the Precambrian is in shields. We've got the Canadian shield, the Brazilian shield, the African shield, the Indian shield, the Baltic shield, the Greenland shield. All available. All of these places are very, very old rock. Why is it on top? Because there's not sedimentary rock above it. It's high plateaus. This is the new mountainous edge where you've got two plates colliding. These are stable tectonically. They are long lasting. Like, yes, the Indian plate is crashing into the Eurasian plate, but the rest of this Indian plate is a shield. It's ancient rock. What do we have now? Here, just a picture of the Canadian shield. Just you can see, if you know what you're looking for, you can see that these are all metamorphic rock that are very, very old, and you can get dating from that. Okay. Whenever ore is mined in these shields, that's how we really know what is in the rock, what it's made of, what its composition is, what the history looks like. So, gold and diamonds from up here in northern Canada, yep, we have learned about Precambrian rock from digging ore in those shields. Okay, let's pause on the rock for a second and talk about the air. Because Earth's early atmosphere was nothing like what you are breathing in and out right now. Not even close. So the early atmosphere, first of all, what did the surface Earth look like? Because it certainly wasn't the continents like this. And then you think, okay, Pangea, it wasn't even that. It was molten. There's enough asteroids and meteors and comets running around that everything in space, the surface of Earth is molten rock. It's just formed. It's hot. It's being collided and impacted over and over and over. And so the surface is molten. And the atmosphere created from that molten rock is a lot like volcanic explosions. Lots of carbon dioxide, right? So lots of water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, no oxygen available in the ancient Earth atmosphere. No oxygen at all. So you can't have plants, you can't have large animals, you can't have anything. So here's what happens. Planet cools a little, cloud forms, rain. Rain hits the hot Earth, evaporates. When it evaporates, it cools the Earth a little bit, makes a new cloud, rains, repeats over and over and over as you fill up the oceans. We talk about great rains. You're filling the oceans as the planet cools. There's enough water vapor in the air. Now, as you rain and rain and rain and rain and rain, that water vapor that's all in the air turns into liquid water and stays as liquid water. So we're reducing the amount of water vapor in the air. And then the oceans begin to dissolve carbon dioxide, so you're reducing the amount of CO2 in the air. So what you're left with is an atmosphere with lots and lots and lots of nitrogen. Cool. But then what? Where do we get the oxygen? We still don't have oxygen in the air to breathe a lot. What you do have are the first plants coming along. And those plants do not require oxygen. They consume carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen. And you might think, oh, so now that's where it comes from. Well, yes, but no. Because the first oxygen that's produced actually reacts with all the iron and creates iron oxide, and it rusts immediately. And then later, after all the iron is rusted out, then plant consumes carbon dioxide, it produces oxygen, and the oxygen slowly begins to build up in the atmosphere from all these living things exhaling. Plants created oxygen, which changed the world, which allowed other species to live. It's wild. It's completely wild. All right. So at the beginning of the Paleozoic era, let's come back here for a second. Nope, this one. at the beginning of the Paleozoic back here, which is Cambrian. So it's the end of the Precambrian, which is what we're talking about. The oceans are filled with all sorts of creatures, right? And those creatures then require oxygen. So by the time you get to here, oxygen is available and is required by life. Back here, no such thing. There isn't atmospheric oxygen in any measurable amount, really. And it's produced slowly over these 4 billion years. Actually, it doesn't even begin production for a while, but that's a detail. So 2.5, so right about here is where you start actually producing the atmospheric oxygen 2.5 billion years ago. Okay, fossil time. The most common fossil from the Precambrian are Stromatolites. Not Cyanobacteria, but they're Stromatolites over here. Okay, that's what it looks like. But we're going to talk about the Cyanobacteria because Cyanobacteria lead to Stromatolites. Okay. The Stromatolites look like, sorry, took a second. They look like layered mounds of calcium carbonate. So this is the material that's deposited by the algae. Now, here we go. This is all sorts of technical stuff. The other name for cyanobacteria is blue-green algae. Not everybody likes that. Modern botanists restrict the term to algae to eukaryotes and not cyanobacteria. Little scientist disagreement there. Cyanobacteria, nicknamed blue-green algae, produce calcium carbonate. And the calcium carbonate that's left over is evidence that that cyanobacteria was alive and there. And when they create these big mounds, you can get fossilized calcium carbonate, and you can find stromatolites. Okay? The thing is, so E. coli is a modern bacteria. So this is what the stromatolites did. These are modern stromatolites. They're not entirely dead. They're still around. It is still hard to me. I know it. I've read it. I understand it. And I still, if I look at a coral reef, I think rock. It is hard for me to recognize personally that is a living thing. And it is. But I look at it and I see rock. These stromatolites are created by this bacteria, and to me, that's a very similar thing. These are tubes, these are stromatolites. They look rock-like. They don't move, they don't wiggle, they don't grow. They look rock-like, but they're alive. So that is a easy misperception. It's an easy way to miss what